Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Be Better podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Perkins. Today's episode is called Be Better with Equity, featuring Zel Fowler. What is Be Better podcasting? Be Better podcasting shares knowledge from fascinating people, all the way to pop culture. You are encouraged to glean the content, use it immediately to be better in the world. Okay, let's transition to our guest, Zel Fowler. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you feeling today?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm feeling very great today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for your time today. I know it's a Saturday and you're very busy. You do a lot of work around equity, so I wanted to tap your knowledge in this area and share it with the audience. The first question is please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Zel Fowler, and I am a teacher. I teach gifted education. I am currently teaching in Phoenix Elementary School District. I've been an educator for about 16 years. And the way I came into education is really because of the topic that we're talking about today. That's kind of what's brought me into the field of education. When I was a about maybe a high school student, I really saw that I want to be an advocate for children. And that was because of things that I had seen. And I just thought that students needed to have a voice, or children needed to have a voice. But my plan was to go into being a lawyer. And so I can advocate for children, to give them a voice, to give them, let their voice be heard, for instance, in if they're being adopted and things of that sort. Um, so I grew up in the military, just to kind of go back a little bit farther. And so I think too that my military upbringing has had a lot to give me a lot of inspiration and to be able to persevere. And that's mainly because of my father and the things that I was exposed to as a child, lots of activities, lots of opportunities and things of that sort. So that's kind of transformed where I'm at today. I'm being an educator. And I didn't actually plan to be an educator. I came into education because, again, some disparities that I witnessed just as my own with my own children. So I'm currently a doctoral student in education, finishing up on my dissertation. I'm also the president of the Arizona Alliance of Black School Educators. And so I do believe that my goals as a child and my experiences have led me to do the work that I'm doing today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know in your description, you're being very modest. You've been doing this for years and you're on tons of committees, so we appreciate your hard work. Thank you. What is the difference between equity and equal? A lot of people get that mixed up. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah. If we're thinking about the difference between equity and equal, I think people can give different perspectives. I actually believe that they're about the same. I just think that they're words. And so when I think about the word equal, I really think about more of human, like just human rights, just people, just being treated equally. When we think about the word equity, I think of the word justice. I'm just allowing fairness. So that's, to me, what I see when I think about the words equity and equal. Um, I really do see those words planted in the Pledge of Allegiance that we hear and that we recite pretty much in schools every single day. Even though they're not using the words equal or the word equity, they're embedded in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, but when we think about the new word, and when I say the new word, because we hear it a lot, equity, we hear that word, and I do think that it's become like a buzzword, equity. And when we hear that and the way it's being presented, it's more of, we need to help others, right? We need to, because we've done injustices, there's been so many inequities, for many years. Now we need to help people. So I think that equity is more like, more of, it's used in a way where we need to find balance, where, by meeting people where they're at today. Um, but I would have to say, for myself, when I think about the word equal, if we just are just thinking about people and saying that everyone is a person, then we can be okay with not using the word equity because it's common sense. Like you just need to treat people for who they are. But in order to do that, you've got to get to know what they need.
Gotcha. Equity. What would you like to bring out in this podcast about it that's really a hot topic, or maybe bothering you, or you're hoping to see a forward progress with?
As far, I mean, I would like to really, there's so many inequities in so many different areas. As we could see currently, even in the NFL, we're hearing about the amount of head coaches. Um, I would like to focus on education because, like I said, there's so many inequities in so many different industries. We're talking about the health industry, real estate industry, just engineering industry, everything. So I would like to really focus on the equity in education.
What would you like to see improve in that area? More people of color, or is it more income, equity?
Okay.
What would you like to see more of?
I would just like to see more of people allowing people to be who they are. When you say the word equity, I mean we need to be able to. We should have more representation, correct? But I think that there's a bigger problem. You just can't have equity. You have to go deeper down. You can't say, yeah, I want equity, because before you get to equity, you have to have diversity. So you can't get there. So we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. So before you can get to equity, if we can follow that path to say, let's work on diversity first. So when we talk about diversity, what does diversity look like? Diversity is that it's more representation. It's more people with different ideas. It's more people in different roles, in leadership roles, or just even, in teacher roles, in education, just that look different, that have different ideas. And so we have to, in order to get to equity, we have to start with diversity. So that's what I'd like to see with equity, is that we focus on making the system diverse first, like leadership diverse. Like look around, where's the diversity at? So focus on that first. And that's what I would like. And then I would like for us to be able to now get into equity.
There was I believe it was 2015 or maybe 2016 Time magazine cover of a picture from 1967
Okay.
where people were rioting in the streets. And then Time crossed the 1967 and put, I think, 2015 or 2016. And basically, I think there was a question on the cover also that says, "Why haven't the time changed? The times, why haven't the times changed?"
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think times are? It's 2022 now, and we're still battling this equity issue. What do you think the delay is?
The delay is not willing and not wanting to change. That's the delay. And until we're willing to be in the company of others and making an intentional effort for that to happen, I think that it's going to look the same if we do this 30 years from now, 10 years from now, if we stay in the same process. I think the first step is we have got to be around others. We've got to find a way to work with others, people with different ideas, people that look different from you, people that, come from different backgrounds. And we've got to find a way to bring in diversity. And so, again, I just don't see things changing um, anytime soon. I know there are efforts being made, but I still think that we really need to focus on not just saying the words, but actually showing and doing these things,
Putting our concerns into action.
putting our concerns into actions. That's correct. Because again, without that, they're just words.
I think there's also, to add to that, there's that fear factor. We know within the next 20 years, the Hispanic population will be the majority population. And I think there's fear of that, where that hasn't happened ever. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be history. So it's like you said, learning about each other, being okay about our similarities and our differences, and moving forward together.
Exactly.
That then transitions our talk a little bit into the critical race theory. Critical race theory has been around since the 1970s. Now it's getting its 15 seconds of fame, kind of like uh, what was that famous thing in salads that got its big to do? I forgot the vegetable. It escapes me. I'll come back to it in a second. But for some reason, critical race theory is becoming a big to do. We know critical race theory is simple, but a few people are making it more than it is. It's basically teaching the truth about history. And people are having fits about being honest and saying, this is real history. This is what happened. We can learn from it and move forward, and that's okay. Have you seen a lot of concerns with critical race theory in business or in the education field?
Yeah, absolutely. And critical race theory is a theory, and it's a theory based on truth, like you said. And there are problems. I think when you talked about the fear factor, that's why we're hearing about it, because it came up with this when there was, the 1619 project, the 1619 project that was the publications of that, the book and the articles about the 1619 project, and so it feared people started getting scared, and that's where it started, this fear. um the problem with critical, and it has transferred into the classrooms. Teachers are afraid to speak about things, even Black History Month, because they think they're going to get, in trouble. Those are the words they use. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want a student to go home and talk, say something to their parents, so they're afraid to now teach. Some teachers think, I'm going to get fired if I say this. So that is a problem. There's laws out there where they're banning books, certain books, from being in the schools. There's a law here in Arizona where they're trying to actually make it a law so teachers cannot teach certain things in the classrooms, or it can be reported if they do. But if we're talking about equity, critical race theory is a tool that should be used to impact equity, because you've got to know the truth. You have to understand it. And if we're not teaching these things, and if we're not learning about these things, then how do we ever expect to really have equity if we're using that word equity? That's why I'm like, it's just equity. It's another word. So I definitely think it is a problem with critical race theory. One, it's not being taught in schools, as we most of us know. I mean, I did not even know about critical race theory until I was a doctoral student, and that's only because I did research. They didn't teach me about critical race theory, even in doctoral. Being a doctoral student. But now that they've brought it up, everyone,
There you
should
go.
know about it. And maybe it should be
Exactly.
taught in schools because everyone's talking about it. So why not teach the students about it?
Exactly. I think because it's a hot topic now, getting a lot of buzz, it will that will increase. I'm a part-time professor for Northern Arizona University, and I just last night included critical race theory, understanding about
Mhm.
it in my syllabus for a
Good.
class that starts next month. Because the leaders that I'm teaching that are getting their masters, they're going to be leaders in the field, be it business, military, or education, and they need to know how to be savvy with it and know how to explain it, educate others about it, and move forward with it. But you're right. I believe you what you say. Critical race theory must be a part of the equity piece in order for equity to be understood better, and so we can move forward.
Yeah.
Very good, very good.
Mhm.
What would your younger or your experienced self say to your younger self if you could go back in time?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I actually would tell my younger self, you were right. You're right. Because I think I mentioned earlier about that I wanted to go become a lawyer when I knew this since I was in high school, that I want to be a lawyer, but I want to advocate for children because they didn't have a voice. And so what I see now, I'm like, I actually go to my younger self and I ask my younger self for advice because I seem to know I actually could, ask my younger self to give me some advice. I talked, remember when you did this? Also, being an athlete, I actually was state champion in track. And so I utilize those things from my past, going back to my younger self, like remembering all those trainings and how you overcame this and how you overcame that. So I have to kind of even go back to myself. So I would actually tell my younger self, you were right about children not having a voice and they should have a voice. You were right about them not being treated fair. And it's more than what you really thought. It's not just in the foster care system. I have an adopted sibling. And so that's kind of where that came from. It's not just in the adoptive, it's in the schools, it's everywhere. And so that's why, I would tell my younger self, and I would tell my younger self, don't wait until you get to college or become an adult to start trying to fix these problems. Start now and work towards it.
And that sends a message of listen to our youth,
Hmm.
especially if they're stepping up, because it's nerve wracking for them as youngsters to step up. So if you have a few that step up, listen to them. We can learn some things. We could change some things. We can work on some things. How can we get people to change their mind when it comes to equity? What do you think? You mentioned some key factors, diversity. I know you and I just had a little chat about critical race theory, educating people. What are some one or two other factors that we can help people start to change their mind about equity?
There's, I mentioned the Pledge of Allegiance that we all know, and it's cited every. I think there's a couple lines that we can repeat to ourselves. Um, one nation under God. Indivisible. One nation under God. Indivisible. Indivisible. If we were reciting these things, kind of like we used to tell students many years ago, write it 100 times. Write this. If we repeat that and really think about those words and look around our own lives and think about one nation, or if you're in a position where you aren't comfortable and you think one nation under God, like we're all really the same, right? To some degree. Does that make sense? We're all people. We have differences. And then also the other part of the not the Constitution, but the Pledge of Allegiance, with liberty and justice for all.
Ah,
Thinking about liberty and justice for all. If we're repeating those things and looking at our lives and thinking, is this how we like? Where do we fit at? Our what does our lives look like? Are we treating people like this? I think by people coming outside of um, where their comfort zones are, where they're used to being, join something new, right? Do something different. Get in a group of people or around a group of people that you're not accustomed to being around, right? That's how we have to start, and just developing relationships. So step outside of yourself and do something
nice.
different. Get in some organizations, meet some new people that, and start slow. And I think that's how we're going to build it. So to change their mind about equity, because when you see other people, then you might think, you know what, we do have a problem. Or if you get into an environment that you're not accustomed to, or that you didn't really know it existed, these problems, because you haven't seen it. um, then you can say, like walking to someone else's shoes, then you can say, oh, I've seen it, I've witnessed it. So, for instance, if you're in a suburban area and that's the only area you've been in and you don't really know anyone in the urban area, maybe connect yourself by maybe finding out what kind of organizations are there, what kind of schools, how can I volunteer to really get into those places. Even if you're from an urban area, you can do the same thing to a suburban area, just to kind of get an idea of how things are really different. Because if we stay in our own areas forever, we only see one thing. We only have one life view. We only have, one, we only see the things the way we see because of our experience where we're at. And being part of the military, that's another thing too, that I grew up in several different places, even Germany, Hawaii, different places, and so I still remember the things when I was in Germany. Um, and reflect upon things like being Schwartz. They weren't used to seeing Black folks there. So when we come out off the base area and we go into the economy, they would be like fascinated when they see a Black person. So that's what I would say. And I think that once we start developing these different relationships by connecting, And then, like I said, I really do believe if we recite some words and since we say the Pledge of Allegiance, understand what we're saying. And if we start doing these things intentionally, then, maybe we can. I believe that we can. I have hope
I
that we
appreciate
can.
your words. I think you're spot on. To get out of our comfort zones, learn over here where we're not used to, and then we want to understand that. And then that's a good start. So we
Yeah.
talked about the start. In a perfect world, we have equity is no issue. Give me
Mhm.
one example of what that would look like. Maybe in education or something, some other area you're familiar with. We have perfect equity in the world. What do you
Well,
think that would look like?
once we have perfect equity, remember we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's when we have inclusion, correct? So they're not all together. A lot of times we lump them all together. DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, we'll have inclusiveness, right? We're no longer talking about equity. We're no longer seeing those pictures with the kids at that fence and the apples that we're now seeing. We don't see those things anymore. We're able to learn from each other. We're able to respect people. We're just, it's a true environment of where people are able to bring themselves to the workplace, because I still hear professors that are at a university level that are Black, and they say things like, I can't even bring myself into the classroom because they have to assimilate. They have to fit in. Even though you're the professor, you have to fit in with your students. So we no longer have that. We don't have people feeling uncomfortable about who they are. They can be who they are, and we'll see the differences. So to me, when we don't have we it's more of a feeling. I mean, that's what it looks like. We'll see it, the diversity, but it's what the people are feeling as well, that they feel like themselves, and that is inclusion.
That's a great point. I think a lot of people feel that way. They can't be themselves.
Mhm.
Be it, like you said, the professor or even maybe a little league coach
Mhm.
coaching a bunch of kids, um, in the community. They have
Right.
to watch what they say. They have to watch how they act. Interactions, everything's recorded, be it audio or video. So I think we have an uptight world where everyone's so uptight and so sensitive, and we have a lot of concerns, and it's hard to work on things when you feel you can't be yourself. Um, Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. In conclusion, what are some final thoughts, advice you'd like to leave the audience in regards to equity? You said a lot of great things.
The final thoughts, I mean, I would really encourage, equity is not just a one person thing. It's not like, oh, it's your problem. It's, you know, or it's their problem. Equities, it takes everybody to really in working together. It's not like a one person, or one group of people that have to worry about or focus on equity. I would just want to, because a lot of times it seems like it's a label to some groups of people. When equity, it's like there's certain groups of people that are, and I'm going to say Black people, or Black demographics, or Black population, or it seems like, oh, we've disadvantaged them for so long, and now we have to have equity. We need to hire a Black person. We need to do. It's not about that, because we're doing a disservice to everybody. Like, think about the students, the white students, or the other different racial students of racial backgrounds, when we don't allow them to be around other people. I mean, where's the equity for them? So equity is just not about hiring, it's a bigger issue. It's like I said, it's a word, but it's a bigger issue because we there's inequities when we don't allow all students to be around diverse populations. If they never have, a teacher of a different race or a different color, where's their equity, right? So equity is something that we really need to think about, why it's important. And again, I think it's very similar to being the word equal, which is fairness. It's not fair. There's a lot of things that we're doing that's not fair, and we need to think about that. And I would encourage people to really join organizations that are working towards that. There are, like, for instance, our organization, Arizona Alliance of Black School Educators. the YWCA. Intel has an outreach program where they're actually working towards equity. SciTech Institute. So these are find some organizations that are really, they've got, that not just on their website, but there's action that they're actually doing. And I would say, recommend that you find those people and get involved. Get involved.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time. How can people contact you if they have any more questions on this topic or they just want to have a discussion? Are you available on a social media platform or an email?
Yeah. Actually, the best way is email for me, which is zfowler at azabse.org, which is on our website. You can also go to Arizona Alliance of Black School Educators, azabse.org. That might be the easiest way because you'll see our contact information there and you can reach out and we will definitely follow through.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much again for your time and your knowledge, sharing that with the audience. We're going to close out right now. Please stay on. I would love to talk to you offline. Okay.